What's going on, everybody? We've hit 40,000 subscribers, and, well, I'm also nowhere close to 100%. But I said that at 40,000 subscribers, we were going to start answering these questions that were over on the Q&A announcement video. So, here I am, rock me like a hurricane. I'm clearly doing everything that a doctor would tell me to do for the situation that I am in. The elixir of life. So let's actually go through a few of these questions. Just understand that my voice may be a little low or a little rough. I'm not going to be able to do anything all of that crazy for right now. But I do want to start to answer a couple of these questions for you guys. This update might be a little bit shorter than some of the future updates. This is to sort of introduce the idea as well as to keep the old voice fresh and rested, because we have a big weekend coming up with new releases. Speaking of that, the 5-in-1 review that was plotted for yesterday, it's right now on hold because of this. Yeah. Anyway, so let's get into the questions. The first one that we have is Christian Moore. He has actually 3 questions, which I discourage, but I'm feeling generous because I've been sick and not been able to produce for you guys. He asks, what is your most disliked metal genre? He asks, what are your thoughts of the band Savatage? And have you seen the Deadpool trailer? I will answer 2 of those questions right away. The Deadpool trailer I have seen. It's going to be awesome. I can't wait to see this film. Might be something to maybe do a CKN versus the World episode on, just for fun. My most disliked metal genre, I really don't have one. I just dislike bands for the most part, by and large, because I can usually find a band from just about every genre of metal that I like. A lot of people thought that I really hated deathcore. I don't. It was just that I wasn't finding a lot from deathcore that was all that stimulating to me, or that didn't sound, exactly like it really followed a formula that didn't have enough deviation for a lot of deathcore, like 80% of it, to seem really interesting to me. But to say that I hated the genre was kind of taking it a bit too far, because I like the idea, like the concept of it makes sense. My thoughts on Savatage, they are hugely influential. If you think about it, we talked about 2 metal operas last week. We talked about The Astonishing, and we talked about the Avantasia album, Ghostlights. Savatage did this in the 1980s. They called them rock operas, like Streets of Rock Opera, etc., Gutter Ballet. I think that the reason why a lot of bands are willing to take this leap and do this is due in one part to the fact that Savatage trailblazed this back then. And as a band, they were extremely solid. They were a group that was very good at conveying emotion, and is it any surprise that some of their alum went on to be a part of Trans-Siberian Orchestra, which is another group that just really conveys emotion extremely well. So that's really not all that big of a surprise to me, but great group. Really love them. Wish they were still with us, but hey, it's all good. So let's move on. We have Saeed Assad Tirmazi. If I destroyed that name, 1,000 apologies. He says, hi, Cover Killer. Firstly, I would like to thank you for all of your work on YouTube. As a longtime subscriber, I always look forward to your well-thought-out and in-depth reviews. It's because of your reviews that I discovered many of my favorite bands today, including Steven Wilson and Opeth, and cars going up my street at 10,000 miles per hour. There's a new band right there. Anyway, we have 2 questions here. The second one is, what are your top 5 pieces of album cover art? I might do a video on that eventually, but that's not in the works at all. But I can't do that for this. Number 1, though, we have, whenever I evaluate a band's discography, I often try to look at their overall musical journey stemming from a band's initial release to their later work, and see how they have matured to change up their sound and to experiment in new directions. This can be easily exemplified by looking at bands such as Iron Maiden, Metallica, Opeth, Megadeth, Steven Wilson, and Dream Theater. Sometimes the changes can be praised, but more often a band can receive hate for it. What band do you think has had the most success in the eyes of their fans in terms of creativity and overall quality of work because of a band's change in sound or direction? Porcupine Tree, 100%. Mainly because this is a group that, whenever they first got started, they had a they had a very psychedelic sound that eventually morphed into one that was harder edged. And fans actually rewarded Porcupine Tree by getting them more fans whenever they took a little bit of a harder edge, because they sort of crossed over into that heavy metal gateway. And then once people heard that there was a connection between Opeth and Porcupine Tree, more people migrated. And really, the more that people migrate toward Porcupine Tree's material, the more that the band is being rewarded with more and more in the way of fans, because it's almost like this best kept secret that they unlock, like a Pandora's box. But I think that those fans that have stuck around since the beginning, or have really been very praiseworthy toward all aspects of the band's career, have never really had a negative thought or a negative feeling about something that this group has done, and that's rare. It really is rare. They might be a little bit dismayed by some of the harder material, thinking that they're catering toward a metal sound, but even then, In Absentia and Deadwing are both such solid releases, and Fear of a Blank Planet also, that anybody that tries to really talk badly about them is just going to quickly sort of step back and realize how silly that they sound. And that's not even that's not me speaking as a fan of the band, like loving the band as I do. That's just the truth. I mean, they're very solid releases that outsiders typically go to first. A lot of multi-part questions. This is crazy. So we have HWO Orang, Haworang, CCC? I don't know. Do you have a favorite piece of fictional literature? Really gotten into the Malazan Book of the Fallen. That's been pretty sweet. If you were an American, what would your choice be of nationality? Probably Scandinavian. Either that or British. Name one song you simply cannot avoid. I have to listen to it consistently. By Accident by Liquid Tension Experiment. It's also, consequently, my quote-unquote happy song, where if I'm feeling down, I can put that on and I feel better. It's a song that I just love. It's a fantastic instrumental offshoot project at Dream Theater. Very, very good stuff. What is your favorite color? Whenever I was a kid, it was always yellow. I wanted a yellow Mazda, like as far as cars were concerned, which is really strange. But these days, it's like a red or a black. If you could be in any band whatsoever, who would I be a part of? I don't think I'd be part of a band. I'd start bands with people. I would love to be in a band with Steven Wilson, because we do have some similar musical philosophies on composition. Although my compositions don't exist because I'm awful at composition, but I feel like the ideas that I have in my head, that the transition to the instruments would be something that we could work with. I don't know. That's a really rough one. I like bands the way they are, and I don't really want to be a part of them. I'd rather just enjoy them, you know what I mean, and do my own thing. We have Daniel Holdcraft, the first one that has only one question. Are you afraid of heights? No. I used to backyard wrestle. In fact, one of the things that happened during those days was that I ended up on top of a shed preaching. I was part of a They Are Coming angle. And not They Are Coming, if you know what I'm saying, but They Are Coming. And so I was on top of a shed preaching and used a lot of satanic or, evil nomenclature that actually I had gotten from I believe it was a Merciful Fate song that I listened to earlier that week. So, and the cool part about it was that those promos and stuff that I did during those days were all off the cuff, 100% ad lib. So that was pretty cool. We're going to do about 3 more, and then I think I'm going to have to call it for part 1 here. Insignia Reviews has a number of questions, really. Good lord. I'm going to do these really, really quickly. Any tips for growing long hair? Wait. Top 3 Iced Earth vocalists? Really? We're just going to say Matt Barlow is probably number 1, with Ripper Owens at number 2. Really, really like Ripper. How ridiculous are the trends that have been how ridiculous are the trends been brought to modern metal. Wouldn't it be nice if metal be like the 80s and 90s all over again? A lot of people hated the 90s because they thought metal died. Nah. You know, the whole thrash deal from the 1980s was pretty cool, but what I would really like to see is more of a respect for it, and I would like to see music itself just really have a big upswing. You know, it seems like ever since the whole rock is dead scenario comes out, there's like this painted gloom over the genre, where the only person that seems to be making really positive press in that regard is Dave Grohl. And I really think that if you just had some folks that were doing more rock-centered radio that really explored more and promoted it more, it would do the world a lot of favor, and it would actually introduce the whole metal idea. So if you do one, you get the other. I think it's the reason why in the 1980s it was such an easy transition, was because in the 70s we were so geared toward rock and roll music, and you know there's a disco age too, but even still at that core it was that creative spin where whenever something that was so different, was something that was so aggressive came out in the 1980s, it was really easy for it to be introduced. As an album reviewer, is it hard to keep an open mind sometimes? How do you deal with reviewers' writing block? I deal with that usually by going and doing something that is completely out of my element. For example, if I notice that everything is getting a little bit too bland or very similar, that's why I like to do other topics and other series, for example, such as the What If game or Relevant or Ridiculous, things of that variety. I can't remember my own damn series. I have so many of them. Because it keeps it fresh and it keeps the mind working in different ways. So I encourage anybody who does any sort of reviewing, don't let that be the only thing that you do. Don't let that be the only thing that you do, because it will eventually get tiresome. And if you find yourself feeling like your language and your presentation is the same over and over again, then you need to find something that's going to change that up. You have to find something that's going to give that a little bit of a creative spark. And usually, again, if you're sticking just with reviewing, then you have to go somewhere out of your element. So if you traditionally talk about heavy metal, you got to talk about something that's like pop-oriented or rap. Something that isn't your typical thing. Or maybe talk about some, if you don't want to go that far, talk about some jazz or talk about some blues. Something where your construct and precision of language is going to have to be different enough that you're going to be presenting a brand new product, not only to your following, but also to your own brain. It's all about finding new ways to think and analyze critically. If One Direction or an emo band played in your area, what would be your weapon of choice? An AK-47, a missile grenade gunship, an army knife hidden inside an umbrella, or a razor blade hidden in my shoe? I hate to be the jackass that says none of the above, but whenever I played StarCraft with friends, I made alliances with them and then nuked their base behind their back. Yeah, that's my answer. Harry Milton asks, will you continue the CKN's favorite album series at some point? That was awesome. What is your opinion of Bruce Dickinson's solo work, and what do you consider to be the most interesting extreme metal album of all time, and why? I will probably continue CKN's favorite albums at some point during this year. I think I burnt myself out on that by trying to produce episodes weekly. My opinion on Bruce Dickinson's solo work is that it's pretty good. I love him in Maiden, and he has choice tracks of his solo work that are excellent. But and I like his diversity on there. I think it brought a lot to the table to Maiden whenever he came back. As far as the most interesting extreme metal album of all time, that's a really, really solid question. That's a really solid question. This might not necessarily be super interesting, but Brave Murder Day by Catatonia just paints a really unique case. whenever it comes to extreme metal, you have a band whose vocalist can no longer do what he was doing during the first couple albums of their career. They bring in an outsider in Mike Ackerfitz, who's not meant to be the replacement, but is instead meant just to help them out for this album with vocals, which Mike did a couple years later for Edge of Sanity's Crimson. And you just have this album that sounds really completely different than anything else that their discography really boasts. It's really cool. It's really interesting. It may not necessarily be it might not be the most creatively bizarre, either that or the most technically brilliant, or it might not even be the weirdest case out there. In fact, it's probably not. But to me, I always found that concept really interesting, and I think that shows you that in heavy metal, you can make changes like that, you can shift things around like that, help one another out, and you can sometimes strike absolute gold, because Brave Murder Day is fantastic. So let's do one more, and I'm skipping over Uncle Jason here because he's saying if you're planning to do a rest in peace reaction video of Glenn Frey, then I look forward to it. I'll definitely watch. Of course I did. So we take it to Ken the Parched Man. I know you mentioned you gamed in some videos. What is your opinion of the current state of the gaming industry? And what would you consider your dream profession? Is it doing YouTube full-time, reviewing albums full-time, something in the music industry, or something completely different? Current state of gaming is kind of cool. It's kind of interesting because I think the console stuff is really weak. And a lot of people probably disagree with me on that, but I think that there's not enough diversity. I don't think there's enough diversity out there. On Steam, you see a lot more diversity, and you're seeing this weird throwback to the 8 and 16-bit era, which is kind of neat. But I think that's also already starting to wear itself thin because of the wealth of people that are trying to do something with it. And you can tell whenever a game has enough creative ideas and has the love behind it, as opposed to just trying to stick with a trend whenever you play some of these games, because there are some that feel extremely inspired and others that feel completely devoid of any sort of sensibility. So I would love to see console gaming really attempt to step outside of itself a little bit and just really aim to drive solid concept and kind of reinvent the wheel a little bit. I love FPSs, don't get me wrong, but we don't need 75 Call of Duties. There are a couple series that just need to die. It's funny that really platforming series and classic series from the 1980s such as Mario and Zelda are still able to deliver very fresh concepts, and that's because every single time Nintendo goes in and they look at things and try to add something to it, and if it doesn't need to happen, they keep things very much the same, and they're not afraid of that. And you have to be very mindful. You take a look at the Yoshi game that just came out. I think it was Yoshi's Woolly World or something like that. That essentially functions very much like Super Mario World 2, Yoshi's Island, while painting this very unravelly theme. It's a very strange idea, but it works so well and looks so visually appealing that you have to marvel at whoever came up with this idea. It was crazy good. I think that Nintendo gets shit on a lot more than they need to be. They do need to get some more real powerful titles as part of their philosophy, or else they're just going to lose everybody. Yeah. My dream profession would be reviewing for you guys 24/7 and making a lot of money doing it, quite frankly. Talking about music, being around music, being in the music biz would be dream profession 100%. There you have it, guys. That's part 1. My voice is toast, as you could tell. So I will see you guys in part 2. Thanks again for 40,000 subscribers. I'll talk to you guys later.